What's up, y'all? It's Tom, the Sugma Male. Not too long ago, I talked about the duality of Ida's character, diving deep on who she is and why she is that way. And in that discussion, I briefly touched on how Lilith cursing Ida affected her, how she kind of ruined her life just a little bit, how it affected their relationship, etc. And just to catch everyone up, I said that I think the main divide between Lilith and Ida is the fact that Lilith is as traditional as she is, and how that led her to a position of authority which pit her against her sister, who lives as a fugitive because of her rebellious nature. At least that's what's on the surface, and then everything else is like a deeper thing. I think there are a lot of factors dividing the sisters that were built on the foundation of Lilith's guilt about cursing Ida. There was nothing between the two of them that couldn't be solved by the two of them just accepting their differences and meeting each other halfway, which is what would eventually happen. But what Lilith wanted initially was for Ida to come all the way over to her side, betray her values, sacrifice her freedom, and submit to joining the Emperor's Coven so she could be cured, and hopefully that whole "I cursed you, oh my god" stuff would just be water under the bridge, which wasn't gonna work for Ida. To put it simply, Ida wasn't willing to accept Lilith back into her life if it would be at the cost of her morals and her lifestyle, and until Ida took responsibility, I said Ida, and until Lilith took responsibility for what she did, she would be incapable of accepting Ida for her curse, accepting Ida for her lifestyle, for everything about Ida that we know and love. So Lilith would take responsibility, the sisters would reconcile, and we've now seen more of Lilith as she's become closer to the main cast. But that reconciliation was not without some growing pains, at least in the meta conversation. Not everyone was on the same page in regards to her alignment. Lilith apologized, Ida forgave her, but some of the fandom did not. So where do I stand? Do I think her redemption was forced, or was it great? I'm gonna be completely honest. Nothing is more obnoxious to me than nitpicking a redemption arc. It is the most antisocial habit that I think has become common practice in critiquing fiction. Redemptions, especially ones like Lilith's, tend to be between two people. When you've wronged an individual, that individual is the one who decides whether or not you deserve to be forgiven. And as much as we try to quantify that on an objective scale, it is entirely subjective to the people directly involved. Relationships aren't something that you can navigate with absolute certainty. There are going to be times where you have to make a choice, and there is no wrong answer, but there's also no right answer. But you gotta choose one. And one of those times can be to decide for yourself if someone who has done wrong by you is worth giving another chance. People talk about forgiveness like it needs to be earned, but that implies that it can go both ways. If there's a universal scale that decides that someone didn't do enough to earn forgiveness, that implies that you can also reach a point on that scale where you are entitled to forgiveness, which we know that's not how relationships work. We know that's not how forgiveness works. It is not possible to just grind out redemption points by doing good deeds and then your ex-wife has to take you back. We understand that forgiveness is independent from merit in that case. So why does it suddenly become about merit when it goes the other way? The fact is, forgiveness is based on perspective, not a singular truth, which makes discussions about did this character deserve to be forgiven incredibly draining, because everyone has a different perspective and a lot of people treat their perspectives as truth. Following a story is an empathetic experience, which means that you probably identify a lot with the characters, and when they make big personal decisions you don't agree with, it's normal that it might not sit right with you. But different people are going to have different perspectives and make different choices. Just because you wouldn't forgive Lilith and Ida did, doesn't mean one of you is wrong. It means Ida sees the situation differently than you. And regardless of my own feelings or anyone else's, I think that choice is in character for Ida. And that's what I think matters more than anything. Ida is habitually selfish to compensate for having a hopelessly selfless nature. She also clearly has a love for her sister underneath all the baggage shown by the fact that she was willing to hand her a spot in the Emperor's Coven. So why would she not accept Lilith bearing part of her curse as an apology? However we might feel about Lilith, we don't get to overrule Ida's personal choices. And that's really what the situation boils down to on the Isles. But honestly, I think the vast majority of people are past that, especially since Lilith is so #relatable in Season 2A. Look at her shirt! Such a vibe. I feel that. I'm Hello, how do you do, fellow kids? However, I still want to look at the person Lilith is and why, similar to how I did with Ida. That way, if you love Lilith, maybe something will resonate with you. You might appreciate her more. Or if you hate her, maybe it'll give you a reason to understand her a bit more and give her some slack. So who is Lilith? Lilith is a very by-the-books type of person, contrasting against her younger sister. While Ida would reject a lot of society's expectations, Lilith would embrace those expectations. Lilith was happy to join the Emperor's Coven, happy to act as an authority figure. She needs structure in her life, and her sense of purpose seems to be tied to achieving conventional social standards. For this reason, you would expect that Lilith would probably coast through life and turn her nose up at her sister for deviating off onto an unconventional path, especially when we look at Ida, and we can pretty easily conclude that she was fully capable of achieving great things within the traditional power structure of the Boiling Isles, but consciously decided to reject the authority and ideology of Emperor Belos. But the thing is, Lilith and Ida get along great together. In fact, as they get closer in the show, Lilith shows no condemnation against Ida's decision to go against the grain, once she's not the authority that Ida is opposing. Lilith was never bothered by Ida's attitude towards the status quo as much as she was bothered by the fact that her younger sister was much better at being the person she wanted to be. A lot of the negative decisions Lilith made were driven by a resentment towards Ida, effortlessly achieving what she worked so hard for, while not even appreciating it, which puts a lot of the decisions she makes into perspective. From Lilith's point of view, what if Ida didn't forfeit her spot in the Emperor's Coven? The thing that Lilith worked so hard for, her purpose as a witch, would have been taken from her by her younger sister, who didn't even want the opportunity the way she did. And the fact is, Lilith was made for that position. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it, including Ida herself. That's why she gave it up. Ida knew that her sister would be a better fit for the Emperor's Coven, and that it would mean a lot more to Lilith than it would mean to herself. And I'd even argue that the fact that Lilith was willing to curse her own sister to make sure she made it in is proof of how much better suited she was for that position. Because let's be honest, real world power structures, similar to the Coven system, are not based on merit alone. They are based on more diverse qualifications, like character. For example, to be a police officer, you have to take a personality test, and if you are too empathetic, you get denied. Because if you're working in law enforcement, even under ideal ethical conditions, there are going to be times where you witness crimes against humanity, and have to exert force on other humans that an empathetic human brain is just not adjusted to handle. Even with surgeons, most human brains are not equipped to go into work every day and slice open other humans to dig around inside of them, but that role is essential to preserving life, so somebody has to do it. To be a member of the Emperor's Coven, it's not enough to be a great witch. You also need to be able to achieve your objective even at the cost of others. We see other members of Emperor Belos' courts take extreme and cruel actions as a means to an end. Actions that would not exclude turning on your own sister if necessary. Hell, I'd even go as far to theorize the one available spot for Ida and Lilith to compete for was in itself a personality test to see who out of two great witches would be willing to put the Coven before their own kin. A test that Lilith would win and demonstrate exactly why she was better suited. And this is an important distinction to make. It's not like Lilith was like, finally, an excuse to curse this witch. She was a young person who had the most important opportunity of her entire life hanging in the balance and did whatever she needed to do in order to ensure the correct outcome. Compared to Ida, who said this opportunity isn't worth putting myself before my sister. Did Lilith do a bad thing? 1000% absolutely total scumbag behavior. But it was also a very human thing to do in her situation. And something she did when she was a child. Seriously, can we stop judging the decisions made by children in fiction with more moral weights than we judge real life adults? People love using that cringy scene of Sakura comparing her pain from Sasuke rejecting her to the pain of his brother killing his entire clan as justification for hating her relentlessly. Like, yeah, that's really bad, but she's also literally 12 in that scene. Like an actual full-on child who has no comprehension of their emotions weighed against the emotions of others. She is not a full person, a straight-up infant. How are you going to judge an adult character based on what their 12-year-old self did? Anyways, what were we talking about? My point is, Lilith cursing Ida was understandable when you stop to consider the fact it had more to do with her own goals rather than a personal resentment against Ida. Well, actually it was kind of a personal resentment against Ida, but it was a resentment fueled by her goals and the potential humiliation of her younger sister being much better than her in an area she is super passionate about. Not only was she risking potentially missing out on her dream, she was also going to do it in one of the most embarrassing ways possible. If the situation was different, if Lilith knew Ida would throw the match, or if both of them had the opportunity to be accepted, then Lilith wouldn't have done what she did. Her actions were a result of being cornered into desperation. Desperation to live her dream, and a desperation to avoid the continued shame of being second to Ida. Lilith must have felt a constant humiliation at her hard work as a witch constantly being eclipsed by her younger sister, who didn't follow the rules the way she did. This would have to have impacted her self-worth. And we know those feelings went beyond witchcraft. Lilith also suffered from neglect while her mother Gwendolyn paid much more attention to Ida. This was because Ida was more prone to trouble and Lilith was on the right track. Gwendolyn wasn't worried about her. And my takeaway from how the dynamic between Lilith and her mother is betrayed is that Gwendolyn can't see the forest from the trees. She's not looking at the situation as Ida is my favorite daughter, and because of that I'm going to put more of my time and energy towards looking after her. You can tell she loves both of her children equally. The fact she's putting so much energy towards helping Ida doesn't change that, but intent is also not changing the fact that Lilith feels incredibly ignored and neglected by her mother, and justifiably so. I don't really have much to say about this on a deeper level that hasn't already been said, but I still find it important to mention that this was a thing that happened to Lilith, because it factors into everything about the person she is. Because a lot of insecurities and anxieties like hers tend to go back to childhood, and this further contextualizes what would drive her to make the decisions she did. Lilith Clawthorne is a disciplined and driven person who struggles a lot with things you can't work for. She can do anything she sets her mind to, but there are some things in life that you can't achieve through hard work. You can't work hard to have what comes naturally. You can't work hard for the love and acceptance of others. And that's something that Lilith is incredibly self-conscious of. So for that reason, it's fitting that her road to becoming a better person would start with her younger sister giving her forgiveness that had to be given rather than earned. That's right, that tangent about redemption discourse wasn't a tangent after all. Understanding and appreciating the lack of control we have over concepts like forgiveness is important to comprehending a character like Lilith, a character who has experienced rejection and neglect in a way that has caused her to rely entirely on validation through her own independent hard work and relentless drive towards success by traditional metrics. As a result of her experiences, she is someone who probably believes that she is not someone who deserves or gets to experience those things. But because one person who cares about her showed her unconditional acceptance, because of that, she is on track to becoming a better and more empathetic person who can enjoy the simple things in life that most of us take for granted. Now she is able to do things she wasn't able to do before, like making new friends and making an effort to reconnect with her mother, which will ultimately be better for her and inspire her to become a better person in the long run. But of course, I want to hear what you think. Do you have high hopes for Lilith in the future? Do you still not trust her? Let me know in the comments down below. Find us at Roundtable Vids or me at TommyPQM on Twitter and Instagram. Also, come see my talk show on Twitch every Friday at 11 PM EST. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to Roundtable for more animation content. My name is Tom, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!